Those of you that are calling...
Look, Detective,
Mademoiselle Conrad.
To uncover truths. To show the world what it is really like out there.
Why then do you go to such lengths to concoct and fabricate stories?
Listen, Poirot, I am not going to stand here and be accused of something like that. You know how damaging that can be to one's reputation.
You knew the situation surrounding the strikes, and only sought to swell the anger in people and create further chaos. Mademoiselle, you so often have something to say. Now is not the time for silence.
You really are delusional. Maybe you should just keep your theories and claims to yourself. Talking of sacrificing lives, have you forgotten what you have done? You know what it's like to get your hands dirty, Detective. You can't expect others not to do the same.
Mademoiselle, I do not have time for your excuses. Do you wish to state your direct involvement, or should I?
I'm sorry to disappoint you, Poirot, but I have done nothing wrong. I must say, though, you certainly put your heart and soul into it. All that matters is what happened in that room, and that was that Elizabeth stabbed him. What came before is irrelevant. She murdered him, and now she has to pay the price.
Now is the time to admit your lapse of judgment. You allowed Mademoiselle Conrad to manipulate you like a puppet.
Ridiculous! I told you already we spoke about the strikes, but she hardly had the authority to make me do anything. This is ridiculous. It was a peaceful strike. We only wanted what was deserved. Surely you do not think I sought to worsen the situation?
Monsieur Beckers, you have taken the words from my mouth.
Jackie was documenting everything to do with the strikes. She wanted our story to be heard and wanted to know how I was handling the negotiations.
And they were handled by yourself?
Naturally. If I cannot handle simple negotiations, I am not fit to be in the position I am in. No, it wasn't like that.
This is not a tale that has been created. The facts I speak came directly from your mouth yesterday. Why is it you cannot admit she exploited your passion and desire for your men in front of the other guests?
Nothing is ever simple, Detective. I'm sure you understand that better than anyone. You're right, Detective. I have tried so hard to deny my part, but I know only too well that my decisions led to the death of those men. I know I cannot excuse what I've done. I just want you all to know that I am not a hateful or malicious man. Monsieur da Silva of...
What more proof do you need?
It was not that simple. Oui, an offer was made.
This is outrageous! Me and my decisions. Detective, you are really clutching at thin air. Need I remind you, I am a successful businessman, and I had nothing to do with the Major's murder. If you think otherwise, maybe you have proved us all right, that you aren't the great detective you claim to be. Do your worst, Detective. I have spent years building my name, my reputation. This is all just a feeble attempt to strike some kind of fear into me.
Monsieur da Silva, you seem to have forgotten...
Is that what you plan to do? Accuse us all of something until we feel enough guilt that we agree to allow the girl to walk free?
The events that led to the Major's murder are not as simple as you have tried to convince yourself. I have uncovered what initiated both the murder of your workers and of the Major. It is you that refuses to accept the truth.
Apparently anyone can become a detective now. I really don't know how you gained your title.
Through order and...
Order? There's no order in beating down who you consider suspects until they have no other option but to admit something, guilty or not.
Monsieur da Silva, you have stood steadfast, and your opinion on your involvement has not wavered.
Detective, you would do well not to anger my friends.
It was not my intention. I only want those responsible to be held accountable for their actions. The Major's death does not fall on one person alone. Does your position on Mademoiselle Elizabeth's guilt remain the same?
Even after all your attempts, Detective, Felix was still murdered. Self-defense or not,
It was not choice.
I wouldn't have driven... He was a passionate man. Sometimes conversations and arguments turned heated, yes.
So, even you confirm.
I'm sure that is none of my business. Likewise, it is none of yours.
The Major shot and killed a number of unarmed prisoners as they were bound and terrified, posing no threat. His actions are unforgivable and should not be defended by anyone.
You judge him so harshly, but I return the question. What would you have done in his position? He had made mistakes. I will not deny that. In those moments when a decision had to be made, it fell to him, and he did what he saw fit. You do not know what he had been through.
S'il te plaît, madame. I ask that you consider everything you know of the Major carefully.
My friend has been murdered in cold blood, and you have the gall to ask me to save her? I will see to it that your superiors know of your crooked tendencies and wavering morals. Elizabeth will hang for this. There is no more a fitting punishment for her crime.
I knew that you had a cold heart, but never would I have expected to see you turn on a young girl so cruelly.
Excuse me?
She may have been the one that held the knife, but look at the monster that stood before her. It could not be clearer the type of man... No, I shall refrain from offending men everywhere. The type of creature that he was. He bribed, he extorted, he murdered. And yet when he attacks a young girl and she does us a favor and stops him for good, she is punished.
I'm sorry, Margot, but I am struggling to understand why you have involved yourself in this affair.
Because that girl does not deserve your judgment. You should be ashamed of yourself. You all should be for allowing this to happen.
Countess, I have talked at length of the Major's death, but not the reason for my invitation in the first place. When I last gathered you all together, I spoke of a blackmail ring that was rife in the area, and then of the letter that the Major had received. Mademoiselle Angeline requested my help personally after she received such a letter threatening her family name. She felt I was the only one that could uncover the truth. And uncover the truth I have.
Get on with it, Detective. Who dared try and extort my family and then have the gall to allow me to welcome them into my home?
If it was not for the honesty of a young servant, I would perhaps still be looking for the
For goodness sake, it was me.
Margot, how could you?
While it looked as though the Countess was helping the young women at the shelter, she... Monsieur de...
That cannot be true.
That is rich,
You are one of...
high, and
If I do...
I'm surprised it took
How?
a home
You have no right.
Maman,
Angeline? Have you heard what she has admitted to? She is merely trying to make herself...
Is what she says true? Felix, he was my father? That is the secret that the letter was talking about, isn't it? You told me that we had nothing to hide. Detective Poirot, were you aware of this?
Oui, mademoiselle. But it was not my place to repeat.
I don't understand. What about father?
Your maman betrayed the love of a good, honest man and played away behind his back and then kept it hidden for all these years like a lady of the night with her client list.
You will say no more. Angeline, I...
Did Felix know?
This is not an appropriate conversation.
He knew, dear girl. He knew the whole time. It is only dear Edwin that was blind to their deceit.
You will not talk of him like that. You will not talk of him at all.
If I don't, who will? You never deserved him. You don't even deserve the memory of him.
Countess, there is something that you still have not explained.
What more is there for her to say?
How long were you in love with the Viscount for?
Margot? Is that true?
We were destined to be together. And then you turned up. And I was all but forgotten about.
But you were nothing more than friends.
And you made sure of that, didn't you? From the day you arrived, it was all about what you wanted and what you had to do to get it. You didn't consider Edwin at all. He was just a purse to you.
I loved my husband, and I miss him every day.
Loved him enough to stray?
Both of you, no more!
Please, Angeline, let me explain.
Maman, I do not wish to hear anything else from you.
Not even your own daughter wants to hear your lies anymore. Cassandra Van den Bosch, all alone.
How dare you!
While I feel a sense of satisfaction and pride in solving both cases, there is still a part of me that is reluctant to revel in triumph. I am content with the unmasking of Comtesse de Vos as the blackmailer, and knowing that she will pay for her crimes. But it is the justice for Mademoiselle Elizabeth that worries me. She will stand in a court of law, and I can only hope that they can see she acted in self-defense. I must trust that our legal system and justice will prevail, and a fair sentencing will be given. In protecting her own life, she took the life of another. Perhaps the guilt she must live with is a greater punishment than any sentence she can receive. Comtesse de Vos was taken from Nemozinet House in cuffs and placed under arrest. Although she initially tried to plead her innocence, Inge, along with a number of other girls that the Comtesse had found employment for, came forward and made full statements. She was charged with 5 counts of blackmail and extortion and sent to a house of corrections, where she will have a new life to become accustomed to. Monsieur Sterling and Mademoiselle Rihanna were also reprimanded for their participation. While they may not be facing time in prison, tampering with a crime scene and obstruction of a police investigation are certainly not something that houses and new employers will look positively on. Mademoiselle Angeline finally became Madame Demire, and together they took up residence in England, where Monsieur Demire continues to support and fight for fairness and equality in London. I am happy to say that we have remained in contact, and Madame Demire has become a regular correspondent of mine, and the latest joyous news is that they are expecting a child of their own. After Madame Van den Bosch's secret was revealed to the world, her position in the social hierarchy was no more, disappearing in a moment. While she still resides in Belgium, I believe she has had to adapt to a far more modest way of life. A humbling experience for her, I am sure. Madame Demire has not mentioned her maman in a single letter. After the discovery of her real father and how she had been lied to for so many years, I am not surprised if her departure from Belgium was somewhat an act of separation from her maman. Mademoiselle Conrad left Nemoziné House the same way she entered, confident in herself and audacious in her opinions. Her report of the Major's murder at the house and the surrounding blackmails became one of the most talked about stories of the year. While there were certain details of her own involvement that did not make it to print, she was really quite complimentary about the detective at the heart of the case. Monsieur da Silva tried to continue in his position as factory owner and business entrepreneur, but after his accounts and business dealings were investigated following the details of his blackmail being made public in Mademoiselle Conrad's article, his illustrious business empire began to crumble and is now facing an international corporate investigation. Monsieur Becker stepped down from his position as union leader, accepting that he was no longer fit to represent the workforce that, in his words, he had let down on a scale of unmeasurable proportion. Although he is no longer the voice of the workers, he continues to support them from behind the scenes. Monsieur Zachariah and his brother made amends, and returning to his family home, and after sobering up, he was able to find the help that he required. I understand that he is now helping fellow soldiers with similar conditions. And Mademoiselle Elizabeth. She stood before a court and was found guilty of second-degree murder. She was sentenced to time in a female correctional house on the outskirts of the city. Alone in a foreign country with no friends or family for support, it will certainly be a hard life for her there. Her mental and physical strength will surely be tested to their limits, but she could not go unpunished. Without repercussions, we would become a society of animals. The death of Elizabeth's beloved Luc has been at the center of everything. Had those in positions to help not acted with only themselves in mind, perhaps he would still be alive today, and the Major would have paid the price for his own crimes in the eyes of the law, not at the blade of a knife. The blood of Major Felix Egan will remain on Elizabeth's hands. A stain that wherever she is and whatever she may do, she will never be able to wash clean. However, it will remain as a reminder to not only her, but all of us, of what we as human beings are capable of to protect ourselves. We all have something that may be considered shameful or sinful, and it is how we deal with it that shows our true character. Those involved in the riots, the workers' deaths, and the Major's killing believed themselves to be untouchable. Whether it was from their social standing or their confidence in themselves, they learned that everyone is accountable for their actions. There is no exemption because of the suit you wear or the money in your bank account. There is no price to a man's life. It cannot be bought or traded or discarded. No man is better than another, including Detective Hercule Poirot.